Citan is Mercedes' idea of what a compact van should be. An LCV that in this second generation form is more than just practical and efficient to run, but one with a depth of engineering and a sheen of quality that make the right statement about your business. Potentially then, the ideal recipe for a small company with big aspirations.
Mercedes has an enviable reputation in the van market, but the Citan, its smallest LCV, has only had a single generation to contribute to it. This Mark II model looks to build upon that foundation, as before developed by the German brand in close partnership with Renault. A relationship which began back in 2012 with the first generation W415 series version of this model, which was a re-engineered version of the second generation Renault Kangoo, assembled alongside that model at that French maker's Maubeuge plant in northern France. When Renault redesigned the Kangoo in Mark III form in 2022, Mercedes had a chance to do the same. Hence the introduction of this second generation W420 series Citan to our market in early 2023. The formula is much the same as before, the fundamentals here still shared with Renault, and this time round also with the Kangoo's Nissan Townstar clone. Mercedes, though, claims that was only the starting point, after which this W420 series Citan suspension, steering, gearbox and cabin were all uniquely developed. But is this really more than a badge engineered product? Well, we're going to see. One really significant fundamental difference from before is that Mercedes is now also going to offer Citan customers the Kangoo's all-electric drivetrain, a strange omission from the CV of the previous generation model. But it's diesel power that'll generate the most customer interest at Mercedes van dealerships in the short term, so that's what we've chosen to test here. Now, as you'd expect, this model comes in two body lengths, and this time round there's also a far more car-like passenger-carrying T-Class MPV version too, also developed in full EV EQT guise. But our focus here is on the conventional van version. Is it really worth that little bit more than the other small vans you might have on your company wish list? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the car and driving road test, to find out. You'll often have read or heard about compact vans like this one becoming more car-like. In the past, what that's really meant is that they don't drive like old-fashioned vans. You'd hope that an International Van of the Year winning Renault design, re-engineered by Mercedes, might be different, and sure enough, to some extent it is, as is suggested by this Citan's higher quality cabin. To make the T-Class passenger-carrying MPV version of this model really credible, the Stuttgart maker needed to also spend plenty of time here on suspension and drive dynamics. And if you've recently driven a Kangoo before your Citan test drive, you should sure enough feel a good few differences. Not massive ones, mind you. Thanks to unique springs, shock absorbers and stabilisers, the ride's very supple. If anything, a touch firmer than that of the equivalent Renault, though as usual with a van, it can get a little choppy when the vehicle's unladen. The other thing you'll notice is something you'd hope a Mercedes-badged small van might prioritise: refinement. The Stuttgart maker hasn't had much to do with the development of the 1.5-litre four-cylinder diesel found beneath the bonnet here, but it has been able to significantly muffle it to a level you'll find in no other compact LCV. At the time of model launch and of our filming, this unit was only being offered to UK Citan customers in 95 horsepower form with 110 badging. But there is the option of a smooth shifting 7-speed auto transmission, which we're trying here, if you want a more urban orientated alternative to the standard 6-speed manual. As we remarked when testing this engine in the equivalent Kangoo, it's a punchy little unit with 260 Nm of torque and decent pulling power at low to mid-range speeds, where the Citan can be worked hard when needed or settle down to a quiet cruise on faster roads. Performance is a little un-car-like, taking more than 13 seconds to complete the 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint, though the top speed of just over 100 miles an hour is never likely to be really tested in the UK. The brakes are strong, and the dual-clutch auto gearbox we're trying here is a good partner to the little diesel engine, smooth shifting and always keen to select the highest available ratio, with a high-set gear lever that falls easily to hand. Cruising is relaxing for a van, thanks mainly to the exemplary refinement we mentioned earlier, delivered mainly thanks to thicker glass and a second seal level applied to the doors. On twistier roads there's not much steering feedback, but the Citan turns in sharply and isn't distracted from its course by mid-corner bumps. Other combustion variants are offered in other markets, versions of this diesel with either more or less power, and some 1.3 litre petrol variants too, but at the time of this test it didn't look like we were going to see any of those here. The alternative e-Citan full electric EV version has to carry around nearly 300 kilos of extra drivetrain weight, but you wouldn't know that by the way the 90 kilowatt 120 horsepower motor serves up 245 newton meters of instantly available torque at almost any speed. For reasons Mercedes can't fully explain, the 45 kilowatt hour battery's 176 mile driving range figure is 10 miles down on that of an equivalent Kangoo E-Tech, but the e-Citan does share that Renault's 1.5 tonne braked towing capacity, the same as this diesel version. E-Citan drivers get 3 provided levels of selectable regenerative braking, from coasting, D and D+, to near one-pedal driving, D-. There are also 2 driving modes, with comfort likely to be your default one, since selecting the alternative eco setting muffles power output rather considerably, reducing it by half to just 60 horsepower, so you won't really want to engage it outside the city limits unless you're really running low on charge. Mercedes claims this Citan is clearly discernible as a member of its product family. Well, it certainly doesn't look like its Renault Kangoo design stablemate. Daimler design chief Gordon Wagner wants to point out the more muscular shoulders, the powerful surfacing, the short front overhangs and the more striking wheel arches. You'll probably just notice the bonnet badge, which, if the price premium isn't too large, might just be enough to make you want one. Body length has increased with this second generation W420 series model with its L1 standard length version, up 107mm to 4,498. From the side, the influence of the T-Class MPV variant is clear in the long panels and rising indented rear line that would designate the D-pillar window on that people-carrying version. The lack of any lower plastic side protectors makes the styling clean, but we suspect would also leave the panelwork prone to dinks during this van's hard working life. Side repeaters are built into the door mirrors, which again looks good, but will make repairs more costly if, or more likely when, these are knocked on tight urban streets. All Citans get 16-inch wheels, but they're of the 10-spoke light alloy sort, with this test van's plusher premium trim level, which is also marked out by body-coloured bumpers. There are nice little details too, like these tiny aero spats on the rear wheel arches. At the front, there's a bonnet designed with 2 contoured edges that flow down into a radiator grille with 3 double louvers and a centrally positioned star, which conceals the charging port on the e-Citan variant. The grille's flanked by these slim Mercedes branded headlamps, which gain LED high-performance beams with this premium trim level. This plusher model also gains these front fog lights, positioned just ahead of the air curtain slots on the outer edges of a lower black bumper panel that incorporates this prominent central square sensor for the ADAS drive assist functions. Here at the rear, the 3-pointed star badge is quite a lot smaller, and here is complemented by reference to this LCV's 2022 International Van of the Year award shared with the Kangoo. A specific Mercedes-Benz styling feature can be found underneath the license plate holder. This double-creased panel contour, which follows the flow of the lower edge of the rear lamps, and so visually links them together. An additional brake lamp is housed in the roof spoiler. Where this Citan should really sell itself to you, though, is when you take a seat inside, so let's do just that. We never thought there was much wrong with the Kangoo's cabin until we took a seat in this one. The Stuttgart engineers clearly didn't think much of Renault's efforts, for they'd taken the whole thing apart and started again. Only the door handles and starter button are shared between the two models. Now, you wouldn't call the finished effect in any way luxurious, but there's a solid quality feel here that other small vans just don't offer. The wing-shaped dashboard design has a smart dimpled top. There's shiny piano black finishing around the air vents and the Mercedes branded gear lever. With this plusher premium trim, you get silver detailing around the door speakers and the climate dials. And all variants come with a smart, if rather small, centre infotainment screen with classy graphics. The chunky 3-spoke wheel is smart too, and through it you view a clear set of typically Mercedes-style, precisely drawn analogue instruments, separated by a black dot matrix centre display. It's all neat, functional and beautifully presented, and a lot of effort has gone into making it so. The brand has its own distinct design standards for dials, buttons and switches, covering everything from lettering font size to ease of use and minimum allowable panel corner radius. All this may be fastidious, but the end result it creates has a distinct feel of 3-pointed star. Yes, there are hard plastics about. You'd expect those to meet the hard-wearing needs of a van, but these have been cleverly hidden lower down or styled to look more premium than they feel. You might find the steering wheel controls take a bit of getting used to. On each horizontal spoke, there's a touch-sensitive square to move across and up or down screen menus, plus roller and rocker switches for vehicle commands that are easy to use on the go, without taking your eyes off the road. Controls on the right-hand spoke alter what you see on the rather old-fashioned looking little screen between the instrument gauges. There are service, assistance, trip, radio, media, telephone and settings options. And unusually for a van, reversing cameras built in as standard. Controls on the left-hand steering wheel spoke are for the MBUX infotainment system, which at 5.5 inches in size will seem small if you're used to current car design, but is perfectly adequate for this class of van. You swipe left through the different sections: phone, radio, media, settings and apps. And navigation isn't included as standard, but smartphone mirroring is, and most van users will connect their phone to the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto supported system, for which a wired connection is needed. There's voice control too, but it's not as intuitive as it is with Mercedes cars. What else? Well, the seats are comfortable and pretty supportive, smartly upholstered in dark, hard-wearing Kaluma fabric that's black with fine white lines. And as you'd expect, there's height adjustment for both the driver's seat and the steering wheel, but not a lot of fore and aft adjustment on the seat base. Air conditioning standard, of course. There's thick heat-insulating glass, and you can add a wireless phone charging mat as an affordable option. As for cabin storage space, well, it's a mixed bag here. If Mercedes was going to redesign the Kangoo's cabin, then you might have hoped they would have redesigned arguably the most annoying thing about it, the fact that on right-hand drive models, half the glove box space is taken up with a fuse box. But no, that's just as it is with the Kangoo. There's a big, deep lidded bin between the seats, but it doesn't appear to be particularly firmly fixed to the floor, nor does it include any connectivity ports that would allow you to charge your devices away from prying eyes. Lower down between the seats, there are twin cup holders and a wide lower tray, with twin USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket. Averagely sized door bins with bottle holders are supposed to be able to take a 1.5 litre bottle of water, and there's a ticket clip on the driver's sun visor. And above that, useful overhead shelving. The Citan range is pretty easy to get a handle on. Two body shapes, this standard L1 and the longer wheelbase L2. Two trim levels, progressive or, as in this case, plusher premium, and two powertrains, either this 1.5 litre 110, 95 horsepower diesel or the all-electric Citan EV. Ex-VAT pricing at the time of our test in spring 2023 kicked off from just under £21,500 for the diesel in progressive trim. It's just under £2,000 more for this premium spec. That's for this standard L1 body style. At the time of this test, Mercedes was asking £1,325 more, excluding VAT, for the L2 version. With either body shape, you can have the diesel engine matched with 7-speed automatic transmission for around £2,200 more. Auto transmission is of course standard if you want the all-electric Citan, but as you might fear, there's a big price jump if you want one of those. Think ex-VAT pricing from just under £33,500 for a progressive L1 version, with £1,170 more required for the L2 variant. Again, in either case, it's around £2,000 more for plusher premium trim. All of this means that the asking figures can really start to stack up. Go for an Citan in L2 form with premium trim and with reclaimable VAT included, you could find yourself paying the best part of £45,000, which once would have been an unthinkable amount of pay for any sort of small van. For some customers, it still will be. Enough on prices and range semantics. How does the value proposition here compare to obvious rivals in the small van segment? Well, in answering that, we'll base our observations on prices as they were at the time of filming in spring 2023. Things may have changed a little bit by the time you view this film, but what we're about to say here will give you a good value perspective as a starting point. We should start with a comparison to the two models that share all the same engineering here, Renault's Kangoo and Nissan's Townstar. In diesel form, both will save you around £1,000 over this Citan, and the Nissan comes with a longer 5-year or 100,000 mile warranty. But there's a much bigger gap if you're looking at the EV variant. Full electric versions of the Kangoo and the Townstar will save you around £5,000 over an Citan. Next, you might well be looking at the shared design Stellantis Group small vans in this segment, the Citroën Berlingo, the Peugeot partner, the Vauxhall Combo and the Fiat Doblo, LCVs that also share their design with Toyota's ProAce City. Because all 5 of these models are basically the same, you might expect them to be priced very similarly, but they're not. Let's start with the diesel variants. At the time of filming, the diesel version of this Mercedes that we're trying here was undercut by around £3,500 by a Vauxhall Combo and by around £2,300 by a Citroën Berlingo. But a diesel Fiat Doblo would only save you about £500 over this Citan, and a diesel Peugeot partner would actually cost about the same, while a diesel Toyota ProAce City is about £1,000 more. With the EV versions of those 5 competitor models, prices vary widely too. As we filmed, the Citan was undercut by around £8,500 by a Vauxhall Combo Electric, by around £7,500 by a Citroën Berlingo, and by about £6,000 by a Toyota ProAce City Electric. But a Fiat Doblo or a Peugeot e-Partner would only save you around £2,750 over an Citan. That's your lot for EV model comparisons, but if, as is likely, what you're after is the diesel version of this Mercedes we have here, then you'll also want to factor in the 2 other key models in this segment, the Volkswagen Caddy Cargo and the Ford Transit Connect. In the future, the Ford will be a rebadged version of that Volkswagen, but as we filmed, that new generation VW-based Transit Connect was still some way off. The old model still selling well, partly because it's very good value. It can undercut a comparable Citan 110 diesel by around £3,700. The Caddy Cargo, in contrast, costs around £1,000 less than this Mercedes in diesel form. Strangely, neither Ford or Volkswagen have yet got around to developing EV-powered small vans. If, having considered all of this, you're still interested in a new Citan, your decision may be finalised by a strong standard of equipment. Is that what Mercedes is offering here? Well, let's take a look. The base progressive trim level gives you everything you really need. Specifically, that means rear parking sensors, also headlamps and wipers, heat insulating glass all round, an alarm, cruise control with speed limiter and heated powered mirrors. Inside there's air conditioning, LED interior lighting and smart Kaluma black cloth upholstery. As for media stuff, well, a 5.5-inch MBUX central infotainment screen comes as standard and includes not only Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, but also, rather impressively, a built-in reversing camera. Less impressively, Mercedes only supplies one sliding side door as standard. There's also an app, Mercedes Me Connect, to control certain features such as locking or unlocking, or finding range and fuel remaining. The electric e-Citan model adds to that tally with a digital instrument cluster, plus of course the charging requirements, which include a Type 2 charging cable, a charging port at the front behind the Mercedes badge, and the ability to set charging times on the Mercedes Me Connect app. With either powertrain, if you can find the extra for this plusher premium trim level, then your Citan will be marked out by metallic paint, LED headlights with high beam assist, front fog lamps, body colour bumpers and 10-spoke alloy wheels. Inside, the cabin gets silver highlights and gloss black dashboard trim. On to options. Now, as we said earlier, you'll need to pay extra, around £350, including the VAT, if you want a sliding side door on the right as well as on the left. Mercedes also makes you pay extra for a spare wheel, all-weather floor mats, power folding mirrors and speed limit assist as well. What else? Well, wireless phone charging could look handy for a little over £200, but if you're using your phone for navigation, it will be plugged in and charging anyway. Other niceties include a heated steering wheel, an electric parking brake, keyless entry, leather for the steering wheel and gear knob, and a colour display for the instrument cluster. You might also want to add a trailer coupling, tyre pressure monitoring, and a reinforced alternator at around £400 to prevent the Citan struggling in urban areas. With the base progressive variants, you can add front fog lamps and high beam assist too. On to safety. Now, unfortunately, the advanced camera safety features you now get fitted to virtually all passenger cars don't make an appearance as standard in most vans, but Mercedes does better than most. Active brake assist and attention assist are unusual to find on small vans. Plus, you get the mandated emergency call button and 6 airbags for the driver and passengers. Hill start assist, ABS braking and ESP stability control make the team sheet, of course, as does a crosswind assist system to keep the Citan stable in high crosswinds. Active lane keeping assist and blind spot assist are available as options to be added for a little over £450 each, and there's little in the way of additional camera safety kit, however, which is surprising for a brand like Mercedes. So on to practicalities. Well, let's pull back these split opening rear doors and see what we have here. Now, as usual with LCVs, they have an asymmetric split to improve access in tight spaces, with the left door larger than the right. They open out first to 90 degrees. Then, if you release these little black hinge catches, to 180 degrees for wider access. With both doors open, the load opening is 1,123mm high and 1,248 wide. The loading height from ground to load floor is 589mm. So far so good, but what's it like in the cargo area itself? Well, it's all very well this second generation Citan being more sophisticated, but if there's a compromise in practicality to go along with that, then many businesses are going to remain unimpressed. Well, at first glance, you might wonder whether that is indeed the case, because the cargo capacity available with this L1 body shape has actually fallen over the equivalent version of the previous generation model, from 3.1 cubic metres to 2.9 cubic metres now, which is strange because this Citan's Renault Kangoo design stablemate has been able to increase its capacity in new generation conventional wheelbase form to 3.3 cubic metres, which matches the capacity of the Stellantis group designs in this segment from Vauxhall, Peugeot, Fiat, Citroën and Toyota. That's pretty much the class standard, and to be frank, this Mercedes doesn't get anywhere close to matching it. It's closest in load volume size to a model many Citan customers will probably have on their radar, Volkswagen's Caddy Cargo, which offers 3.1 cubic metres. Of course, to compensate, you could pay extra and choose this Citan in L2 long wheelbase form, which would add just under a cubic metre of extra load area volume. But that, of course, means a chunk of extra change up front. Whatever your choice of body shape, L1 or L2, there's no capacity volume compromise if you choose the all-electric e-Citan powertrain rather than this diesel version. But because of battery pack weight, the EV version will compromise you slightly when it comes to payload. For this diesel version, that's rated at 666 kilos. Both the main panel van versions can fit a standard Euro pallet in the rear, thanks to the 1,248mm space between the wheel arches. There's 1,524mm of cargo area width from wall to wall, and in this L1 version, 1,806mm cargo area length. You get just over 400mm more with the L2 version. There are no clever tricks to be added here, like the optional easy inside rack you can add to the interior roof of a Kangoo, or the open sesame feature, B-pillarless side access design that Kangoos offer in Europe. Talking of side access, let's take a look at that now. The first thing to note is that there's only one side door fitted as standard here on the left. The Kangoo offers a standard one on the right as well. Again, you can spend more on a Citan to correct this. At the time of our test, Mercedes would sell you an additional right-hand side sliding door for £354 more, including the VAT. But of course, it's all extra spend. In either case, the dimensions of the sliding door in question are 451mm in width and 1,089mm in height. This L1 model gets 6 floor tie-down points around the sturdy black plastic ribbed floor. There are 4 more tie rings on the walls. As usual, you do well to add a ply lining kit to protect the floor, and particularly the wheel arches and cargo area wall sides from scrapes and scratches. Enough on practicalities. What about running costs? Well, from the Citan 110 diesel 6-speed manual version, the quoted WLTP fuel economy is 54.3 mpg, while CO2 emissions are rated at 137 grams per kilometre, both figures fractionally better than those of an equivalent DCI Kangoo. It's 51.3 mpg and 145 grams per kilometre of CO2 for the Citan 110 in this automatic transmission form. Overall, manual or auto, that should mean a full tank driving range of around 620 miles, though this will of course change dramatically depending on how heavy a payload you're carrying. As you'd expect, there's an engine stop-start system to boost economy figures in urban traffic. Although the Citan's assist function will provide a message almost 1,900 miles before a service is due, standard intervals are at 2 years or 18,000 miles, whichever's first for the diesel models. The e-Citan has a slightly different setup at 1 year or 24,000 miles on an ongoing basis. Mercedes offers a Service 24 package which allows for pay-as-you-go servicing or set payment plans depending on needs and fleet size. And free breakdown cover is provided if this van is regularly serviced by an authorised dealer. That cover renewed each year for up to 30 years. Those interested in the e-Citan EV model will want to know about range and charging. Now, in our driving section, we told you about this electric version's WLTP rated driving range, 176 miles. But that figure will, of course, be heavily dependent on how heavy the load you're carrying is. to give you some class perspective on that, rival Stellantis Group small EV vans like the Citroën e-Berlingo, the Vauxhall Combo Electric, and the Peugeot e-Partner travel between 170 and 175 miles on a single charge. Unlike Renault, Mercedes doesn't include a standard heat pump to preserve range mileage in really cold conditions. A provided app or centre screen function allows you to precondition the e-Citan's cabin climate before you set off to preserve battery charge when plugged in. Battery replenishment from 20 to 80% for the e-Citan takes 40 minutes at a public 80 kilowatt fast charging point, or 1 hour, 21 minutes at a 22 kilowatt public charging point using the provided Mode 3 cable. A 7.4 kilowatt domestic charging point wall box requires just over 4 hours, while you'll need over 13 hours from a standard 2.3 kilowatt domestic socket. How about insurance? Well, the Citan is listed at 33E for the diesel and 34E for the e-Citan. Competitive for its class. And residual values are strong, which is a good job considering the added cost in price the Citan commands over its Kangoo sibling. After 3 years or 36,000 miles, a Citan 110 L1 base spec progressive model is expected to be worth £10,950 from its original asking price of £25,572, including VAT, and a similar specification e-Citan around £17,000 from its £39,870, including VAT cost. A 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is offered as standard, which is better than the Renault's 3-year 100,000 mile product, though Nissan's Townstar provides a 5-year 100,000 mile warranty as standard. This second generation Citan borrows from what is, in our view, the most improved compact van on the market, the Mark III Renault Kangoo, and adds a Mercedes sheen to the whole package that will particularly appeal to owner-drivers. To create a proposition that will obviously make even more sense if your company fleet already includes larger Mercedes Vito and Sprinter vans, and you need some smaller ones for urban deliveries. The quality cabin will impress in the showroom, but this isn't really a small LCV that's going to sell itself to you on paper. Just based on pure stats, you'd have to say that the cargo capacity figures are rather below par, and the pricing's higher than the class norm. But not every business needs ultimate cargo capacity, and quite a few company accountants will quickly cotton on to the fact that the higher asking prices are compensated for with higher residual values. Overall, what we've concluded from this test is that this second generation Citan is good enough and distinct enough to credibly wear the three-pointed star and justify its premium as a quality choice in the compact van segment. The way it looks, the way it drives, and the way it'll feel to own and use this van are all unique, as will be the impression your business will make in running one. Imagine, say, you're running a gourmet food business or delivering fresh flowers. Like it or not, you're going to create more of an impression of quality arriving in a Mercedes-Benz. Of course, all that would be an irrelevance if economics of this vehicle didn't stack up. Fortunately for this German brand, proven Renault underpinnings and engine wear ensure that they do.